Spirit of anger was taken away from me. I had it. And as a result of having anger, I was insecure. I had doubt, worry, fear. I was in a fallen state and didn't know it. And it wasn't until I went and forgave my mother who tried to turn me away from my father. I forgave my father for not being there and returned back to him. My spirit connected with his spirit, and through him, I was able to return to God. And I have perfect peace. Perfect love casts out anger. And when anger is gone, fear and doubt, worry, insecurity, suicidal thoughts, all of that is gone, and you are free. Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, or if you want an autographed copy, you can go to my website at rebuildingtheman.com or call 800-411-BOND. So, here's what I recommend. I invite you to download my silent prayer.
I know some people have called in and they wonder if the silent prayer is working. And I just want to take a second and to tell them that it works. You just have to stick with it.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I started doing before I even forgave my parents. And I was so depressed and suicidal at some times that I just would have to stop in the middle of my job or whatever I was doing and go into the silent prayer. And it really does help. Like, I don't have those anymore.
Amazing. You haven't seen anything yet. Doubt every thought. Bring every thought into captivity. Just let them all pass. Don't judge them. You haven't seen anything. It gets better and better and better and easier. So my gift to you, no charge, at rebuildingtheman.com/church. Isn't he Mexican?
Colombian.
He calls himself American.
What is this?
Anchor Baby.
And in this corner, it's the American Anchor Baby.
Daddy's home. That's an offensive term. People find that hurtful.
You mean it's not politically correct? Excuse me. I'll use the word anchor baby. You know, he's an anchor baby in Canada.
Tell him we still rolling with Trump, too.
Anchor baby, the whole thing sounds horrific. You're just making it sound like immigrants are these horrific, greedy people.
Ustedes pueden aceptar mi negocio o aceptar las consecuencias. Plata o plomo.
So you would be considered white, in my opinion.
You the blackest one in this room.
I think so.
And what happened was his mama got pregnant on the other side of the border. And then a few hours before, just before it was time for him to pop out, she jumped across the border and let him fall on American soil. So he became the anchor baby. You don't call him the anchor baby for nothing. Amazing.
We like this anchor baby, right?
Hello, I'm the American Anchor Baby, and this is my show. Thanks for tuning in on this fine Tuesday. It's a pleasure to have you back here. And I got a bit of a show for you today on this fine first day of White History Month. So nice to be here. Like I said, got a bit of a show for you. You know, happy Canada Day, by the way. Shout out to the Canadians. I didn't forget, it's Canada Day. In a couple of days, it'll be the 4th here in America. But for those over there in Canada, happy Canada Day. You know how it goes. So welcome, everybody. I'm the American Anchor Baby. And if you want to call in, if you got something on your mind, something you want to get off your chest, you can call in 888-775-3773. Other than that, let me welcome all my lovely viewers on rumble.com/AmericanAnchorBaby, punchy.tv/AnchorBaby, and of course here on YouTube. How you doing, everybody? Welcome to the show. Mic check, mic check. Am I coming in nice? What else? Pray for Canada. All my Canadians we got Canada in the house in the chat, and it is Canada Day. Okay, their national day. Okay, understand? The Canadian Confederation, as it occurred on July 1st in 1867. So they're maybe celebrating a little bit. Some are down in the chat. They're saying, we're dying out here. Pray for Canada. And I definitely have Canada in my mind, in my heart, my love, my sweet Canada that I grew up in, that let me in to her. That let me into their nation as a little anchor baby, but with massive appreciation for Canada and these countries that have allowed me, my family in. My mom doesn't even speak English. It still doesn't speak English, and so I'm grateful. And in many ways, there's parts of me, even the way I said that word. There's parts of me that I consider Canadian in a sense, right? What is that even to most people? You know, I was saying yesterday, when it comes to the law, when it comes to these things, what should make a Canadian, what should make an American is essentially American parents, Canadian parents, at least with a citizenship, right? At least two parents with a citizenship, at the very least. But I do have a place in my heart, right? I grew up in Canada. Came down to America. Dual citizen, very controversial. Don't worry, I'm not going to be in the government. I'm not planning on it. And I disagree with foreigners and anchor babies in the government. You know, they may. I don't know. It's a strange one. Some are more anchor baby than others. Huh? Maybe some generations here. Maybe you do have a parent that's a citizen. I'm not here to tell you what you are, but shout out Canada. I love them. And there's a common refrain I keep hearing about immigration lately. I'm seeing it a lot. And I bet you some of it's correct. Like, for example, this individual here talking about Rome. They're playing this video out there in Rome. Some guy. I like this guy, Kurt Kaz. He goes around the world. He goes around the world like a white man who owns it, like some kind of colonialist. I like the vibe. And he goes around, and in this one video, he's in Rome. And he's like, this is terrible. What Rome has become. Is this really Italy? What is happening? And he's just appalled, filming and walking through the street, showing how these aren't quite Italian. These aren't necessarily Italians in his eye. He's wondering, is he in Rome or is he in Bangladesh?
Look at this, guys. This is.
I don't know. Some of those look like Italians. Maybe he doesn't know. Some Italians are kind of dark. I don't know if you knew this, Kurt. They're not all as white as you. It's called history. We don't have to get into it. But the point is, it happened. So some of those might be Italian, sir.
Look at this, guys. This is Rome. This is Europe.
This is Europe. This is Rome.
Does this look like Europe to you? I don't see a single Italian here, guys. I am more Italian than any of these people. Look at this.
Okay, maybe that guy's not Italian. Yeah, that guy's probably not Italian at all. Or maybe. Occhio amigo, occhio amigo, occhio. Have an eye. Pay attention, amigo. He's telling him. We're not well regarded here. Be careful with your eyes open. That's an Italian. He's warning Kurt that this is a very dangerous street where they deal and sell fake stuff. Occhio amigo. And to just be careful. They have knives, machetes. And it's like, wow, what a mess. Rome too. Rome. London, Paris. How could it be, right? And what I'm seeing, the refrain of what I was saying earlier is, to a lot of these videos, some are saying that this is propaganda, that this is just kind of what goes viral on X, And that Rome isn't really like that, for example. Rome is nothing like this. He went to some neighborhood that's probably been like this since the 1970s. Lawrence Southern used to do the same thing, and now there's a whole biome of these liars on X doing this for seal claps. And maybe that's true. I've never been to Rome. I've seen similar sentiments from other Europeans, to be fair. And so I appreciate this in a sense, as one of those sobering sentiments and things to say, because despite any immigration and terrible things happening, you should stay in reality. If something is not happening how it's being presented, then it simply isn't. All this to say, it's like this guy might be right about Rome, but Canada has changed so much in such a shocking way. I mean, I have to almost I'm thinking I might go fly there, film some stuff if you guys are interested. Lawrence Southern style documentary. I never watched Lawrence Southern's thing on the farms and all that, so I don't know how dishonest or honest, but I just know from growing up in Canada just how much it's changed. It really is shocking. It really is shocking. And let's say it was just the cities, like they'll say, oh, it's just a neighborhood, a city, a street. It's still terrible. Even if we're talking about the main cities of the country, and they're just gone to the foreign population. It's just the city, man. Calm down. These are just X videos that are trying to get you to be all racist and click stuff. Maybe, to a degree. But Canada on my mind a bit. Shout out Canada. Happy Canada Day. We'll leave it at that. That's just something that was on my mind. 888-775-3773. I see calls already. I will get to all of you. But that's pretty much it with that. A happy Canada Day for the Canadians. And what else here? It's shocking, right? But we'll move on from all that. We'll move on. Because I want to deal with some of this news real quick here concerning the bill, the big, beautiful bill, and the Republicans and the debt. They're loving this debt thing, and they're like, oh my gosh, not the debt. The debt is going to rise up. And you got a couple of libertarians out there. You got Rand Paul. You got a couple of people out there on the internet. Elon Musk. You know, these guys, they want to see a smaller government. They want to see, maybe not Elon Musk, but some of them want to see a smaller government, less spending. It's just crazy, all this spending we do. It's time to stop. And that's just a fiscally conservative thing to do. They're looking around, like Rand Paul's looking around saying, where are the conservatives? It's time to, you know what, all I see is the debt going up, so I'm a no. And all this talk of the debt, it's like, do you think that matters at this point? Some things are a little bit more important, right? And these numbers and debt and GDP is kind of it becomes secondary when you realize, well, it's getting harder and harder to see what is America. Where does the country begin and end? It's endless division. And what can I say? There's this bill coming down, as I was describing yesterday, some of the details. And as it seems, and should it pass in the state we saw it in, it's a major win. Call it a win for immigration and border enforcement. It's already been pretty interesting with Trump. They're saying the border crossings are at a level they haven't seen since the 60s. Imagine that, a country unable to deal with these things until, I guess, one guy with enough will wanted to do it. And here we have this bill, and it's all this talk about, well, we should be fiscally conservative and this in-between thing. Now, it seems like a whole bunch of Republicans are going along with it, but they're always the holdouts, as they say. They have a 53 majority in the Senate. And so this comes down to these holdouts, what's going to happen. And as you may have heard, they've been basically voting on what they're calling a marathon vote, a vote-a-rama, all night. It's gone into the morning. And as of 18 minutes ago, just checking this now, the CNN update on this, the bill is not necessarily the bill. Chuck Schumer is calling it irredeemable, and they're still in this process. Okay, and so what is this process? We'll get into that in a second. What is this vote-a-rama they're doing, and what did they do all over the night, and all that. So we'll get into that. I want to show you first an individual here, zero in on Rand Paul. You might know him a little bit. Rand Paul. Let me see if I can pull up all my info on Rand Paul and everything we were going to say. Rand Paul. I mean, you may know him a little bit. They say he's a libertarian. They call him a libertarian-leaning Republican. Senator Rand Paul out of Kentucky is not happy with this bill. And you'll have to excuse me just for a moment here. I realize all my clips are on a different card here. You know, it'll be very fast. Hold on. Do a little switcheroo. We need a bigger SD card to fit all of the videos so I can show them all, right? So let's see here. What can I show as a background? In the interim. How about this? Boom. Bada bing. Okay. So I'm going to show you Rand Paul. He's not happy with the bill. He's saying no. And he's going to tell you why. This clip was like 6 minutes, but I shortened it down. He's telling you basically that it's just not fiscally conservative. That they're all the in this big 10-year plan, they put all of the expenses right at the beginning in the first 4 years, and they're going to do all this spending, and he's positive that they're going to spend it all because that's what you do with these spending packages. One thing that's not, he says, up for debate is the spending. If they save $500 billion, they're spending every dollar of it, and he's not happy about it. And then the budget offsets where they're going to save money is in the last 6 years. He's not happy about it, right? Because this is classic governance, right? You get all the stuff you want at the beginning, and then you hope to offset the cost later, but it's a never-ending debt accruing mess. That's what Rand Paul cares about. Others care about other things. I want to show you Rand Paul just a little bit here as we get into it. Let's unmute everything.
In deciding whether to vote for the big, not-so-beautiful bill, I've asked a very specific question. Will the deficit be more or less next year? The answer, without question, is this bill will grow the deficit. That's just not good if you profess to be fiscally conservative. The big, not-so-beautiful bill adds new spending of over $500 billion, military, border, agricultural subsidies, etc. That spending is front-loaded and will be spent in the first 4 years of the 10-year window. Legislated spending is one of the few items in the bill that is exact. Fortunately, the spending cuts are backloaded to the final 5 years of the 10-year window when several tax cuts expire and the spending increases are finished. The only real certainty in this budget drama are the budget years coming in the immediate future. It's the next year or two are the only things that are actually of any certainty. Says the debt will add $500 billion in the first 5 years. Now, they say somehow, miraculously, in the last 5 years, it gets to a $500 billion in savings. Supporters of the bill admit it adds $270 billion to the debt next year. That's the only thing we know for certain. That doesn't sound at all conservative to me, and that's why I'm a no.
He's a real conservative. I'm really, really conservative, and I care about just this one thing, the debt. It's like, why? Why is the debt going up with this bill? It's for a number of reasons, right? He says the only thing that's certain with this is that the debt will go up. Well, yeah, how about a couple of other things, Rand Paul? You know what else is a certainty? No America. Okay, call it Mexico, Somalia, Haiti, South Africa. Consider this birthright citizenship thing is not totally fixed. It was barely a Supreme Court thing on just stopping this injunction. They've still got all these states that are going to allow it. The country is, I don't know if it's fair to call it hemorrhaging. We're not losing people. We're gaining people that we don't want, and it's astronomical. It's killing the country. And so he's like, it's the only thing that's certain is the debt is going to go up. He's like, yeah, the problem is things change in 10 years. All you're promising to offset all these costs later, but you're going to spend all this money now. It's like, yeah, buddy, get with the program. We want this now because they think it's important. And I think it's important, too. This border is definitely more important than this. Call it, what, at this point, fake money going up and down. What's few more trillion, a few more $1 trillion in debt, or a few more trillion, well, millions, I guess, in illegals, or really just people, foreigners. It becomes easy for me. And, Rand Paul, this libertarian types guy, these types of guys, I get this impression, because libertarian, small government, leave me alone, stay out of my life, government, let me do things. These leave me alone type people, small government, etc. They seem to be getting run over by this very government. They're sitting around saying, don't tread on me. Meanwhile, the government is like, okay, I heard you. Proceeds to tread on you. Proceeds to absolutely tread on everybody. And so he says this, and I can maybe sort of understand it, but I don't know. That's not where I align. I mean, I'm not opposed to a strong state. I'm not opposed to that. I believe in a hierarchy, an order. And these people, these leave me alone type people, I get this impression that they're like this, like preppers, uncontacted tribe of sorts that's allowed to exist. I mean, if you want to be this leave me alone type guy, you have to be quiet. You have to be a particularly strong or wild individual. And I don't see Rand Paul and the libertarians like him, anything like that, personally. That's kind of what I pay attention to, too. I may not have all the facts, but, just character and people. Just get this impression that he's neither very strong or wild and uncontrollable, right? So, to add to this, Thomas Massie, he's a representative over there in Congress. He's got this little badge, okay? He's got this little badge that he programmed himself. He's like a smart guy, techie guy, and he's got this badge, okay? He's got this cute little badge. And it ticks up and up. It's like the U.S. national debt. Oh, look at that. Let me just and he puts it on. He wears it. He's like, yeah. Just so you guys remember, tick, 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 tock. I'm in Congress. Oh, by the way, look at this, guys. You guys want to talk about this and that? Well, let me remind you of the U.S. national debt. He was saying here in this post, I'm going to program my debt badge to display the number of milliseconds that have elapsed since real Donald Trump has tweeted at me last. Trump has been kind of going off on him, talking about getting him out of office, primarying him, etc. Thomas Massie has been critical. I think this is about this bill specifically too. In fact, Trump here says he is a negative force who almost always votes no matter how good something may be. He's a simple-minded grandstander who thinks it's good politics for Iran to have the highest level nuclear weapon. and so there was some mess. Massie came out. I mean, he's kind of been against this AIPAC Israel stuff, and then he comes out, not too happy with Iran. So that plus this, Trump has seen him as a political enemy. I mean, can you blame him? I'm okay with Massie. I'm cool with the whole AIPAC thing that he brought up. Is he that smart and always right? No. I mean, look, he's against this bill, which is the only thing since Reagan that America has attempted to actually fix this problem. And he wants to put on this badge and say, oh, how many milliseconds, how many trillions of dollars am I doing nothing about? Can I put it all blame on him? No, but, when you're the guy, you're putting on the badge, that's how you come off to me. You're like, oh, let me put on the badge that does nothing. What am I getting at here? Why am I bringing them up? The kind of men that you need to protect and preserve what's left of white America, to maybe even bring it back, the America Jesse grew up in, the Canada I grew up in, the sort of America I grew up in, this country, folks, it's the kind of person you need for that is a strong man, essentially. Okay, and I don't know them too well, but they don't strike me. They don't strike me as the strong. They're just fiscal conservatives. Oh, nice, right on there. Rand Paul, Thomas Massie, put her there. It's like, whatever. The case. Let me give you some of my reasoning as to why I see it this way. should it come down to it. Maybe they're strong. Maybe they'll be tough. Maybe they'll have enough people around them to make it okay to defend white people. But let me tell you why I just don't think so. I just don't think they're just not it. Case in point, Elon Musk has been very critical of the big beautiful bill. He too is saying it's going to increase the debt. It's a mess. And he's defending Massey, promising to donate all this money to Massey. Thomas Massey has responded to Musk's saying it helped. That's helped him, all his support. So he seems to be thankful and happy with Musk, whatever. He said that he's extremely thankful for Musk's financial assistance as he stands as an independent voice in Congress, Thomas Massey said. So Elon Musk is saying he wants to launch a third political party with the news of this mega bill, right? As you know, he was not too happy. He came in working with Trump in his administration under DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, these promises to cut all this fat out and make the government efficient. And for someone like Elon Musk, we're talking about transformation. And when you make something like the government efficient, you're making progress. You're making changes. You're making big things, right? That's how he saw it. So he comes in, he works with Trump, and it doesn't quite work out so well. He leaves in a kind of a intense fashion, criticizing the bill, criticizing Trump, coming out and making these terrible things, saying these terrible things about Epstein, and Trump was on the Epstein, right? He was connected to Epstein. So with the news of this bill and all that, he's saying he's going to launch a third party. A third party, right? We'll do it right. We'll do it for real. A third party because these two parties are messed, right? I can agree with some of that. Here's the thing with Musk, Doge, Massey, and actually defending America. Because Doge was a failure. Essentially, it was a failure. It was proposed. They proposed and promised $2 trillion of savings. It ended up being $180 billion, and the independent reports say it was a lot less. And it's a failure in the sense because of what Musk really wanted, which I think many can agree with, a true transformation. It didn't quite work out that way. And I think with his relationship, I think Trump allowed that relationship as best as he could and saw where it was useful and needed, etc. But there was no promise or any real decision to really truly let Musk take out trillions of dollars, because what would that entail? That would mean actually going after what the government really spends on. The military, the social welfare programs, and all that kind of stuff. And part of what Trump is trying to do requires increasing spending in some of those things. I mean, he's got a vision. He's not here saying it's a small government. He wants to make it work for the people, maybe even shrink it, but not like how Musk was thinking. And you know what? It wasn't supposed to be. Trump is in the king chair right now, and you know what? I'm glad for that. Consider the kind of person Elon Musk is, at least from what we can see. Remember the H-1B fiasco. Remember that he wasn't too happy when the real, like the people, the grassroots base of Trump's base, his supporters online, they're not billionaires, they're not influencers, they were just people online. When this talk of stapling green cards and bringing in skilled workers and foreign workers, etc., they made a big stink about it online, say, we're not cool with this. And this was right before Trump's election. This was like a very big point of contention. Elon Musk identifies strongly with the immigrant, with the foreigner. He's like, I came through H-1B. I came from South Africa. I made myself all these things. And you know what? I believe his third party would be a success. I'm sure it would be in some ways. Unlike Doge, because he'd be able to do what he wants to do. But the question is, it would be a success for what end? And for who? He told white America to F yourself in the face when the H-1B stuff came up. And then he goes around riding around with Thomas Massey and the badge guy, and the badge guy loves it. And so when the bad guy has to defend white America, and he's being paid by the only guy supporting the independent voice in Congress, it's like this is what I'm getting at when it comes to preserving this America, Jesse's America he grew up in, et cetera, to some degree, any degree. It requires, I think, a strong individual. I just don't get that impression from Rand Paul, Thomas Massie. Shout out to them. They're doing their thing. What else did I want to say about this? That's pretty much what I was thinking about that. All right. And so nice. I'm glad Trump is in the chair. Yeah, increase the debt. What else about this? Let me finish these two segments off real quick because it still pertains to the bill and all that. I got some interesting things for you. I want to get to my calls and super chats, and then I got a totally different thing for you. I think you guys are going to love it, or at least find it interesting. But what else here? Look, interesting things still happening with the administration and all that. There was this vote concerning kicking illegals off of Medicaid. And it was controversial right online. People were not too happy. They saw this news. U.S. Senate rejects measure to kick illegal aliens off Medicaid, 56-44. It was going to only need 50 plus 1 votes, a mere majority. But the Democrat parliamentarian decided it needed 60 votes while scrutinizing the big, beautiful bill. Fire her. And this has 6.7 million views, and I'm seeing this everywhere. And I just need to clear this up because, yeah, this is propaganda or just misinformation. It's just wrong. It's just wrong, and it's Republican fantasies, I have to say. Just kind of made up things, I think. Okay? Or truly just misunderstanding the process here and just making stuff up. So what happened is, yeah, the U.S. Senate rejected a measure to kick illegal aliens off Medicaid. You read that, you're like, wow. So they're just going to let all these illegals on Medicaid? But how do these headlines come about? How did this headline come about when there's all this voting on a spending package and this voterama? What is all that? What is happening? What they're voting on is a reconciliation bill, okay? It's a spending package. It's a spending package that administrations push through, and then, of course, you got to do it through Congress and the House, and then it reaches the president, it becomes a bill. And they try to get these through to get stuff done for their administration. The reconciliation bills are a special setup that allows them to bring up a bill that is meant to be of a certain scope, okay? Usually you need a majority of 60 in the Senate to get these kinds of things through. But a reconciliation bill concerns itself with a different criteria. And the criteria is the bill has to deal with only taxes, spending, okay? Something like that. And if it leaves outside of that scope, then whatever you're voting on requires a different set of standards, okay? With the reconciliation bill set of standards, you merely only need 50 plus 1 votes, okay? Now, should a certain line item in this bill be, should it fall outside of this scope, this reconciliation bill scope, then the Senate parliamentarian has the discretion to decide and advise that's the case, that this line item doesn't fall under the standard of a reconciliation bill, and so for that reason, this is going to require a 60-plus majority vote, a supermajority, or whatever they call it. So that's just a little bit of the jargon of how that works. They have this reconciliation bill. They come up with this spending package, and they do this whole process with it. At the end of this reconciliation bill process, they have this session called, they call it marathon voting, voterama. Essentially, any senator can propose any amendment, and they could do it an unlimited amount of times. That's why it's gone all night, over into the morning. And what happens is you bring up an amendment, you have a quick debate, a couple of minutes over this amendment, and then a quick vote on it. They're unlimited, and they're historically symbolic to try and get somebody on the opposing side on record saying something. That's how you get headlines like this. Senate rejects amendment to block Medicaid for illegal immigrants. A headline like that does not necessarily mean like the opposite thing happened. You know, they rejected a measure to kick illegal aliens. That means Medicaid is there for all illegals. That's not necessarily what that means. Maybe it means there was already a provision, and so this was superfluous. It could be a number of reasons. I just like describing this for those that didn't know, and I didn't, because it's all so much theater, politics. So just wait till you get the final decision on the bill and what it is. In this case, what happened here is what exactly happened is this provision with Medicaid came up. And who gets to, like I said earlier, who gets to decide what's in the scope of a reconciliation bill? What requires a mere 50 plus 1 votes or 60 votes? It's the Senate parliamentarian. And the Republicans are blaming this woman. They're blaming this woman. Let me see if I can pull up a picture of her. They're saying this woman, because she wanted to, decided that this is actually going to require 60 votes. And of course, with the makeup of the Senate, that's her right there, it's basically her fault that we can't have a country and we just have to allow illegals on Medicaid. That's just kind of Republican nonsense I'm noticing. That's not true. Her job is to simply to advise, and then it's up to the Republican leader, John Thune, to then make a decision on that. Okay? Now, should the Republican leader, in this case John Thune, should he have gone against the Senate parliamentarians' advice on how to handle this line item about Medicaid? What he would have done is gone against her, and that would have started another vote that would require 60 people. And so what did the Republicans do there strategically? They knew they weren't going to get the vote. So no, there was nobody holding it up. There is nobody to blame here. You don't blame Thune. You don't blame that Senate parliamentarian, okay? Because here's the real deal. The Senate does not care about ending illegal immigration in a real way. They benefit. And what you're seeing here is we're supposed to take this in as a numerical reality. It's just a numerical reality. The Republicans just don't have the votes. Here's the point. This has kind of been the reality for decades. And here's what's the enduring point throughout all those decades, that both sides do not care about actually dealing with illegal immigration. Okay, there's all sorts of ways you could do it, right? E-verify. You could make that not allow them to get hospitals and not allow them to get all this stuff. You could do it through Congress, but notice that you get either the numerical reality of the problem with the seats or just procedural whining from Republicans. Oh, the Senate parliamentarian did it to us. Notice that through those two realities, the way it is because of an aligning truth that starts upstream is that they benefit, okay? So they're going to drag their feet, and that's pretty much it on the Medicaid vote. And the kind of political theory you're hearing about it on the internet, on X, it's actually trying to get smart on some of these things. It turns out people don't know at all what they're saying. They're just saying things. They're just saying, this Senate parliamentarian, it's her fault. Like, what, are you paid by the GOP? Like, it's retarded. So hope there's a little education for you on that. And that's that. Okay, let's move on here. I want to get to my calls. I got one more interesting political thing for you. Trump denaturalizing citizens. You might find this interesting. And then I got something totally different for you. This is totally Nick's world. I think you'll like it. But yeah, that's kind of the process for you. I had to educate you a little bit because we're trying to get smart here. My viewers, we're going to be smart, okay? My lovely viewers, I'm not leaving you behind. We're getting smart together, okay? 888-775-3773. The spice must flow, and I'm being quoted. Happy White History Month to everybody in the chat, everybody who's joining, and they're not aware. This is, in fact, White History Month, the very first day. We're celebrating all month. So get in. So we'll do the super chats and all that later. I want to get to Robert out of Kansas. I appreciate your call, sir. You're on the air.
Hey, Nick, you don't want to take my call, brother.
I don't?
Well, no, I mean, if you don't, it's okay. It's your show.
No. Are you telling me I don't want to take your call?
Listen,
because if Robert's telling me that, I'll tend to believe him.
If you don't have to fight with me, all right, Nick?
I'm not going to fight with you, but I did take your call on purpose.
Still, okay. Well, I had two subjects, and then I was trying to get into hate, and then now you're covering all this stuff. And it's like I want to kind of address everything that I can, right?
See if you can. Can you pick the most important thing and then see if we have time for the rest?
Okay, let's just start, damn it.
Yes.
My favorite tweet to Trump from Musk, he said, "What do you got, 4 years? I got at least 40.
I remember that.
Okay, so, and don't ever show Kurt to Hake, right? Because then we'll have to hear about his lips for 3 weeks.
Whose lips? Hake's or Kurt's?
Okay. Number 3, I got more money than all of y'all.
Than me?
Yeah.
How you know?
We got a friend in Georgia. If you could bring up a clip, I'll shut up for a second, Nick, and you could play it. And it's when Forrest Gump, when drill instructor, our friend in Georgia, Josh, the drill instructor says, "Gump, what is your purpose in this military or this army?" Oh man, if you could bring that up,
I sort of remember. I can't play it because of copyright, but I sort of remember that. Yeah. What does he say?
He says what he says, sir. Hey, and I want to apologize to Hake real quick. Okay, I called him a CIA agent. Okay, and I was accusing him. I was the accuser, right?
Yeah, Fed jacketing.
And then I found out he's just retarded.
What?
So it was.
You've hit me with 4 things so fast I couldn't even respond to. I'm left confused, Robert, and I don't even know what you're talking about now, sir.
Okay.
So,
but no, can I get? All right, let me get. Okay, we had Terry called in about energetic.
No.
Okay,
let's pick one. Here, I'm going to give you nothing personal, but go ahead. One topic that I will understand that's about something I can respond to. Go.
Okay. And you're Mexican, right? Let's talk about spiders, Nick. You know what spiders are?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so they were doing studies on spiders, right? And they were noticing that a spider, they thought initially, this is decades ago, they thought that spiders had something called precognition, meaning that somehow, some way, they actually moved, like if a predator was going to get them, they actually moved before the predator did, right? So they said precognition. That means you can basically, what do you call it? Psychic, clairvoyant. You have some sort of understanding of what's going to happen before it happens. Right. So they thought this for a long time. They set up robots, experiments. They did all this stuff that made, man, these things know, like before something happens, they know. Right? Somehow. So then another group of scientists said, no. There's no precognition. Who knows? Nobody knows anything before it's going to happen. That is a foul. That's just wrong, right?
Says you.
So they set up another experiment, and what they found is the spider didn't have precognition. What it did was that when you send out, let's say you're going to smash a spider, right, Nick, with your foot or whatever. Yeah. When your brain sends out the electrical signal to smash that spider, the spider knows it. So see, it's not precognition. It's that and they did more research, right? This is decades, right? You can look all this up, brother.
So this was
They
proven,
figured out-
or
no,
at least to them, this was they had evidence of this sensing of an electrical signal in someone else.
You can look all this up, sir. What they found out is they're not precognition. They're basically reading your mind. So, like, let's say a spider jumps out, and you have a feeling of, okay, little spider, I mean you no harm. And the spider looks at you and is like, okay, bud, and just kind of scurries off. Now, if another spider, let's say when I see a spider, right, I have an innate reaction that is maybe like a reptilian type of thing, right? Like I'm just going to kill it. And so whenever a spider jumps out in front of me, it's like, it just goes, right? It's like, oops.
Right, it's sensing the input. To summarize, it's sensing the impulse that's happening. That is something happening in a person, but it's sensing that well before the impulse causes you to act. The evidence is saying that the spider is sensing that impulse. Is that what you're saying?
So you said the word aura recently, right?
I did.
So think of it more of energy, or especially frequency. Right? Like, and what I'm saying to you, Nick, is all of nature has this. And they have it at different levels. Now, we might be, we can't do what a dog or a cat or a rat does. Like, they're just mammals. Now, imagine you're like an insect, and you can, like, just sense frequencies. You just,
Right.
And so you see what I'm saying?
I'm
I don't
following.
know.
See if you can move a little faster, but I'm following. This is actually somewhat interesting. I mean, this evidence that there's sensing impulse, but go ahead.
Okay, the fact that a spider will come out when you leave your house, they could say, well, Robert, it's just sound. They know you left. They know your habits, whatever. But what if they literally, like, can feel your energy, like, flex when you got to go to work? Because you're like, damn it. Right?
Well,
and then the spider knows, they're going to work. I can feel their
I'm
energy.
following. So, the evidence that they're sensing things that normally you wouldn't be able to. I'm following.
Yes,
I'm following. I mean, possibly you're saying, what if you're saying some of the researchers out there? I'm just cutting you off because it's like, I think I'm totally there on what the research is showing about spiders. You're kind of just describing multiple instances of it, and I'm following, man. Sounds fascinating, man. I got to check it out myself. I mean, what is precognition? Let's think about it for a second. Like, what is precognition but just absolute awareness? You know what I mean? Like, even it maybe not so fantastic as the of what is allegedly the spider senses, but even between people, someone who's particularly aware of a situation of a person will be able to see something on someone's face before they say it, stuff like that. I mean, what is precognition? But really, all it is pure awareness. You're seeing things others aren't. That's all precognition is, so to speak.
Nick, do you want to hear about the ministers of God? I got a Bible sermon. I'll try to make it fast.
You said Bible sermon? You can't make a Bible sermon fast. Call me back on this.
Call you back?
Yeah, we'll do ministers of God next time you call me.
Okay, it's just Romans.
And I'll look into the spiders. That's actually fascinating.
Well, hey, man. Apparently, throughout nature, like they know now that trees like know when you're around or know when you're not. They know if that they're finding out that like things are like sentient in a way where if you're just in a body of water, you transfer your consciousness into the water. Right?
I'm writing this. Spider, yeah.
So
go ahead. You're saying you transfer it to the water.
Yeah, Terry was talking about energetics today. Like if you go to Trump Tower, it's all pink granite, right? I've been to Trump. I don't know if you've ever been to Trump Tower in New York, but in Trump Tower, I've been there. The escalator, all that, right? Had coffee there. It's just all pink granite, and it's energetics, right? So like a granite is different than a marble. A sycamore tree is different than an oak tree in what they do energetically to either bringing energy into the ground or pushing energy out of the ground.
I know what you mean. Music, aesthetic. architecture, they all attempt to denote something deeper, a spiritual realm of things, and even mere lines, geometry can express certain things. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, if a granite floor is pressed up against the natural earth and you're walking on it compared to a concrete floor, the energetic exchange is different because of the nature of the composition of the granite, right?
I'm following. We can't get into granite, though, Robert. I'm going to let you go for now. We spent plenty of time on this. Call me back on Ministers of God, and we'll talk more on architecture and the spiritual side of all these artistic things, man. It's stuff I do enjoy.
I know you're scared, Nick. That's all right,
I'm
brother.
Scared. No, you're scared. Your mama. Thanks, Robert. Call me again. 888-775-3773 is nothing personal. It's just he's clearly an individual with like lots of interesting ideas, or like, lots of threads to pull on, but no definite question or comment. So we'll leave that for another day. Robert, thank you for calling. 888-775-3773. Let's see here. I wanted to deal with this real quick. Allow me to spend some time on this. And then we'll switch. We'll totally switch here because I got to show you guys a scam. I have to reveal to you a scam like you wouldn't believe. And for some of you, I think it should be interesting to all of you. Eye-opening to everybody if you're listening. And to some of you, your minds will be blown. Your mind will be absolutely blown. But I quickly want to mention this denaturalization thing. I think you're going to start seeing more talk about this. What to know about the DOJ revoking citizenship of naturalized Americans. Is the Trump administration listening to the anchor, baby? I've been telling y'all, hey, don't be afraid to start revoking and denaturalizing people. Yeah, start taking away who says that it's like, oh, we did a mistake, and oh, well, they scammed America for the past 100 years, and oopsie daisies. It's like birthright citizenship wasn't meant to be that way. It's for the slaves, but 100 years of immigration, what are you going to do? Who says it has to be that way? Who says it just has to be that? It doesn't have to be that way. You could be very creative in law, I've learned. You could make legal distinctions of anything you want. If America wanted to, tomorrow, they could say, you know what, all you illegals and all that, and foreign workers and all that, you know what? We can have the best of both worlds. We can keep all of you, work those farms, make our cheap stuff, do it all, and not allow you to be a citizen, and make sure you go home when the work is done, and make sure your children don't become citizens. Turns out you could do all of that. You could be quite creative in the legal world. It's a matter of will. And so, I've been saying, like, hey, that's not a taboo. That's not a big sacred cow. Don't be afraid to retroactively remove citizenships. And don't get me wrong. It's not like I want it. It's not like I'm that tough. Like, I'll sweat a bit. Like, I don't want to be taken out of the country. But hey, I know what's right. And if it's never as bad as you think. There's maybe going to be a pathway to keep your assets, or maybe not. That's not even something that's here. So there's no point in thinking about that. And I keep telling the foreigners, hey, act right, and you don't have to go down this path. But alas, maybe it was always destined to be this way. The jealous hating the great, and then the great forgetting and hating too, and becoming ungreat. I don't know. It's a modern world we're living in. It's probably why we need White History Month. But back to this denaturalization mess, you're going to start hearing about it more, I think, because it's like controversial. How are you going to denaturalize citizens? What's wrong with you? And the news basically is this memo came down from the Department of Justice. Okay? This memo came down from the Department of Justice, the Office of the Assistant Attorney General, U.S. Department of Justice, a memo directed to this all civil division employees. Okay, what this means, it's all the attorneys and all that. And they have a number of line items here that they consider particularly important in what they're calling their enforcement priorities, okay? President Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi have directed the Civil Division to use its enforcement authorities to advance the administration's policy objectives. This memorandum describes those policy objectives and directs Civil Division attorneys to prioritize investigations and enforcement actions advancing the following priorities. And they got some pretty interesting ones. I mean, they kick it off here talking about essentially DEI, okay? Just what they call discriminatory practices and policies. And you know, it is call it creative, call it what you want. I personally, you shouldn't even need such a thing, but a creative use of civil rights. You know, they're saying you cannot, they're combating illegal private sector DEI preferences, mandates, policies, and programs. And for what? Because the president, as it reads here, is ordering all agencies to enforce our long-standing civil rights laws. Hey, I'm not going to hate them for it. It's creative. And they're basically saying, hey, I thought we had civil rights. You can't discriminate against white people. That's what this is, folks. But here's also the kind of other side to the coin, the kind of shame. The shame about it all is that you can't be explicit. Even now, you can't be explicit. You call it DEI, you call it civil rights and discriminatory practices, but what the voters really cared about, and what they saw was a big crime, was that specifically the DEI and all that stuff is anti-white and directed. And of course, the other part of it is like, it's just not merit. It's not about merit. That drives honest people insane. You're telling me just because of skin color, just because of an identity, you get to be this or that, and you know, people who deserve it get passed over. What kind of country is that? And so I'm glad that they continue on this. And you know, and here's one thing what tells you why they are, in fact, at least, you know, attempting to do this in a real way, because of the backlash. The proof is in the backlash. You notice it's been some time now, but all the MSNBCs and the Skims and all that, they've been going hard against this DEI stuff. This guy's really actually going to do it. He really wants to get rid of what they call the necessary like protections that these civil rights groups require, deserve. Not true. It's like the only mechanism they have to even get to where they are, because otherwise they wouldn't be there. And so that's kind of the thing about this. And like I said, the proof is in the backlash, that they're really kind of going at it in a real way. Again, you got to notice, though, you can't be explicit. You still can't be explicit about these things. You can't defend white people. You can't defend the original stock of the country and maintain and say it explicitly that, yeah, the desire is to maintain a majority white country. I mean, I just personally, unless you could give me a better, you know, framework and reasoning that's reasonable, that's the only conclusion I have to maintain America. Give me a better one, fine, we could talk about it. So what else about this? They're protecting women and children. That's cute. That's good. We need to protect the women and children. It has to do with the gender stuff. Executive orders defending women from gender ideology, gender extremism, restoring biological truth to the federal government. It's like, fine, that's cool. And I know they care about the children, right? Because the children, they want to stop all this, what they're calling surgical mutilation, which is a fair description. Chemical and surgical mutilation. The Trump administration has been effective in using like, what's it called? Like withholding funding and that kind of stuff in an asymmetrical way to deal with this overrun system. Okay? Now, protecting women and children, if I may, I got to nitpick a little bit. You know, it bothers me because this gender ideology stuff, it's basically picking which barbarian group wins. Because when you look at the transgender LGBT people, it's like a bunch of barbarians who just like clamoring for their one thing they want. And then, and if not, they'll just, you know, burn the town down and pillage. It's like, what are we going to do with these people? And then women too. Now, maybe not so physically physically imposing. but they want to, you know, they want what they want. They'll end society otherwise. And what I'm saying here is that you got basically the government kind of standing behind that. Because where did this even come from? Women saying, oh, those men, how dare those men try and become women? That's impossible. We're divine. That's just it's terrible. You know, those men are obviously strong and they can physically overpower in the bathrooms and blah, 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 because it's about women. So as the, you know, if you're the voter or the government, imagine what you're really seeing there is like you're like a king. You're like a king and you have like subjects and you have this tribe of barbarians and these two tribes of barbarians. When you're protecting the women on this gender ideology stuff, you're just choosing one of the barbarian groups to win, and they're both like barbarians who just want their tribe to win and destroy the others. That's what you're dealing with. So that's how I see them. And that's pretty much it there. Denaturalization. Here's another aspect of this. Combating anti-Semitism. Ending anti-Semitism is another one. Is number 2 here in this memo on how the DOJ should order themselves and enforce things. And well, I'll say this. You know, I get that there's been this aligning, so to speak, of Jews, Jewish liberals, and aligning with the right and in deporting terrorists, deporting anti-Semites. It's quite I think it which is now suddenly quite appeasing to these liberal, open society type of Jews who now see the danger of this brown, anti-colonialist underclass that has put Jews in this category. It's just what they've done. It's just, for me, if I may, the thing about anti-Semitism in itself is that that word, is a charge and a claim against the very white people, the makers of this society, of which I benefit, of some might say grafted onto, whatever, like I'm grateful for. So that's what it bothers me. I get it that there's been some aligning and all that, and I love the Jews, and I see that hopefully they are seeing this reality. You're seen as white enough to be hated and all that. It's just that this charge, anti-Semitism, this ism, racism, anti-Semitism, at its very core, the word itself is this charge, this assumption that's in the hearts of white America and these people. Like I said, that I appreciate it, that and the makers of that society. So I get a little, I can understand the alignment and all that, but to a point, at some point, it doesn't fit and align with, you know, actually standing up and maybe even side by side with the Christian, the white man who seems to be like your only ally, Israel. So, you know, cool it with the isms. What else about that though? Yeah. That's denaturalization. I just wanted to mention that. Interesting news going on. What else about this? Yep, denaturalization. Oh, yeah. Basically, from what I'm reading here, and I could be wrong, the anchor baby, like if I start going around committing crimes, because I forgot to mention, that's basically what they're doing here. They're focusing on people who commit crimes. And who they're deciding to denaturalize. And gang members, we're talking decades of this, folks. And these people who are gang members, international gang members, right? They're doing crazy things, have had children, and those children are citizens, full-fledged citizens. They have family, they have chain migration, so their whole family can come over. That's what we're dealing with, folks. So that's awesome. The DOJ has decided, you know, we can show that you commit crimes, you're in gangs, you're all this. Guess what, buddy? This citizenship isn't protecting you. We're stripping it away and getting you out of here. So I personally appreciate that. And it seems to be a step in the right direction, moving the Overton window in the right direction. I mean, it was not that long ago. This kind of talk is off the deep end crazy. You mean denaturalize someone? What are you, crazy? What? Challenge the birthrights, the 14th Amendment? What, it's been hundreds of years. What, are you insane? Yeah, that's not how people are talking anymore. All right. Some of my thoughts on all this. What are y'all saying in the chat? Because I got a bit of a different segment for you. Switch it up here, huh? Did Nick cover the clip going around of the white lady and the duck? I don't know what you're talking about. Probably should leave this for some other time. White lady and the duck? Whatever. Appreciate you being here, though. Thanks. Ethnat. Is it Ethnat Atheist? Yep. Thank you, Argalunas. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the supporters. Thanks for rating the stream. Happy Canada Day. Takcho. Is it Takcho? Nice. Thanks, Creighton. Appreciate it. All my viewers on Rumble. Amazing. Thanks for the super chats, folks. Thank you, John. Thank you, somebody. Someone. Thank you, someone, for the coffees. Always very generous, so thank you. Amazing. So what else here? Lovely viewers, Rumble supporters. Yeah, thank you, Lin Yan Chin. Thank you, everybody, for supporting. Okay, so I got something for you. Let's switch gears here. I gotta show you this scam. This absolute. This what? Call it a scam. Call it how we scammed ourselves. But I found this so fascinating. Let me see if I can pull it all up. And it has to do with the music industry, pro audio equipment. Do we have any performers in the chat? Anybody, any performers out there? Do we have anybody with experience purchasing amps, amplifiers, amp modelers, or even any, honestly, even any modern music gear, groove boxes, sequencers, synths? Any musicians in the chat? Any gearheads in the chat? Or gear sluts? Let's be real. You just can't wait to get your hands on the next piece of gear. On this, look at the new Roland. Look at the new synthesizer. Oh my gosh. Look at this new Ableton Push 3. Anybody know about the Ableton Push 3, which is $2,000? Is it a glorified MIDI controller? It doesn't create sound. It just lets you control sounds from your computer, aka MIDI controller. It doesn't make sounds, but it's nice and look at all those fancy lights. It's pretty. It's a pretty device. It really is a pretty device. But hey, what do you have out there? Oh! I can't wait to get I can't wait to get my hands on a Kemper profiler. Who has one of these? Oh, bro, I got a Kemper profiler, and basically at my fingertips, I have every amp sound, every amp ever created, ever. Music, pro audio equipment. Everybody familiar with this one? The Kemper profiler. So I've been buying and selling pro audio equipment for some time. To different equipment to try out. I'm trying to build something kind of like a secondary studio. Trying to build a number of things for my viewers that I like to do. It's fun, and so I'm trying to build a studio, and I need various things. I've been buying and selling a number of things. I've also been just buying it. It's been somewhat profitable too. Being knowledgeable about some of this stuff, being able to buy certain things cheap, reselling them or selling them at a good price, and I'm making some profit. So basically, I've been buying and selling pro audio equipment now for some time. And for example, I was recently the owner of a Fractal FM3. Okay, the Fractal FM3. What you're looking at is a miniaturized stomp box version of the same company, Fractal, of their what they call the Axe FX. And both the FM3 and Axe FX are what's known as an amp modeler, and it's a multi-effects device. It has a number of effects loaded onto it. It's also known as what's called an amp modeler. Okay, and it models the different speaker and amplifier combinations of different famous amplifiers, very famous ones over the years. And you got them all. You basically have them all in this little box. Well, the XFX is not a little box. It's quite expensive. It's a rack-mounted amp modeler. But I had the FM3. It's an expensive little unit, okay? But it's amazing, right? It's this amazing unit. It could do so much. Amp model all these of the greatest bands in the world, in the history, all that. And this very fancy routing of all these effects that you can layer and put them on. And wow, it's just, you see the videos of this stuff and people make this amazing guitar tones, and it's like, wow, I'll just buy this. I'll probably sound and play just like that guy, right? And I mentioned too, like the Kemper Profiler, like this one. I just mentioned this one. These devices promise to let you model the sounds of all the most famous amps in history. Now, they'll tell you, in the marketing, they'll tell you they do it a little bit differently. The FM3 models the actual circuitry of these famous amps and lets you tweak them, whatever that means. I don't build circuitry. That's just the marketing from Fractal. And then from Kemper, they'll tell you, well, what we have is called amp profiles, which is very different from an IR profile. Now, for those that know, an IR profile, an impulse response profile, is essentially a snapshot of an amplifier. And this snapshot, you can then put this snapshot into all sorts of digital sound processors to then instantly replicate the sound of that amp using what's called an IR profile. Now, if you know anything about IR profiles, they're free. They're totally free. You can find every IR profile on the internet free. Now, what Kemper did is they have something special. It's called amp. It's not an IR profile. It's amp profile. It's a little bit different. It's proprietary. We're not going to tell you exactly how it's made, but it's definitely different, and you got to pay $2,000 to have it. Again, these devices all promise you these things to model all these sounds, okay? And I've been thinking this for a while. Where does sound? What determines how a sound sounds, right? What determines how a tone sounds? Well, I came across an individual on YouTube. His name is Jim Lill, Jim Lill. You could check him out. And he put out this video 2 years ago, and I'm just recently watching it, and I now need to inform all of you because we're late on what is essentially a mind-blowing, to me, a mind-blowing truth here. So Jim Lill has a series that he calls like a YouTube series that he calls Tested, and he does all sorts of deep testing of different things. And he had this one question. He had this question for himself. Where does the tone come from in a guitar amplifier? Now, you definitely go check it out, your video yourself. But this video absolutely changed my whole thinking. Okay, it was mind-blowing. And then I thought about something even further. And so I'll tell you that in a moment. But allow me to express this for you here. I found this so fascinating. And then we'll get to calls.
In deciding whether to vote for the big...
Go away, Rand Paul. We don't need you right now. And I find this fascinating for a number of reasons, right? Because the world is a scam, and the only thing that's in the main thing that's causing you to believe lies is your ego. I hope you'll see what I mean here in a moment. So Jim Lill's video, he's talking about, he's testing amps, and he's trying to answer the question, where does the tone, how a sound sounds, come from in an amp? So let me tell you a little bit about amps, if I may. I mean, for anybody who's had a guitar and loved playing guitars, maybe even back in the day, the amplifier was big, right? It's like, wow, you have a Vox. Oh, wow, you have a Marshall amp. Wow, that's like how AC/DC. That's the amp AC/DC played with. That's awesome. You know, you gather that all these different amps, they sound a little bit different due to their construction and certain specific, certain design functions. Okay, and that's why they're so unique and different, and they sound so amazing. And that's why you got to have the Fender Tweed for when you're doing country, and that's why you got to have the Marshall when you're doing rock and metal. Let me play a little bit of this. I've taken snippets out of this Jim Lill video. Let me play for you one little part here to kind of get into it here, okay? Watch this.
People on the internet describe the sound of 50s tweed Fenders as edgy, hairy, and touch-sensitive, 60s black Fenders as sparkly, clean, and clear, and 60s British Voxes as chimey, jangly, and mid-rangey. Mid-60s Fender-style amps have been used by, I think, literally all of the studio players in Nashville that I look up to. That sounds really common in country music. Amp number 2 would have to be a Vox. Their most famous model is the AC30, so when I was on the road and found this one at a cool studio in Grand Rapids, I bought it and took it back with me to Nashville. AC-type amps were used on a lot of recorded guitars by the Beatles, Queen, and Brad Paisley. And amp number 3 would have to be a Marshall, maybe the most iconic amp company in rock music. And while I was visiting one of my friends, he said he wasn't using his Marshall very much and I could borrow it for the summer to help solve this puzzle. It's a Marshall JVM 410H head with a 1960 AV 412 cab. And according to the manual, its crunch channel in green mode makes the circuit like a JMP Era 100 watt head from the 70s. Think AC/DC, Lynyrd Skynyrd, and Van Halen.
Wow, right? Some classic rock sounds. Some of these amazing amps, a little amp history for you there, condensed. Now, what the heck is an amp? For those that don't know, I mean, an amp, you've heard some buzzwords there, speaker, cab. Essentially, you have the amp, sometimes separated in its own unit, known as like an amp head. And that amplifies the signal. And then you have the cabinet or speaker cabinet where the sound comes out of. Sometimes these two units are put together in one single unit, but these are the components of an amplifier. And this combination of parts, materials, and construction essentially is the thinking on what makes these different amps sound so different. And it's why they're so expensive and why you got to have the different ones. But what makes the tone? What actually makes the sound the way it sounds? And for those that know this world and have been in the forums, in the gear forums and all that, you're somewhat aware of what they say. And guitar amplifier manufacturers have all sorts of, the guitar amplifier manufacturers, the forums, and all the gearheads online all confirm and tell each other the same thing. If you have this kind of tube, it sounds warm. And if you have that kind of tube, it sounds this way. So Jim attempts to test some of these manufacturer and forum, construction aspects. And he tries to test some of these. I want you to watch this part just a little bit, okay? Wait, let's see here. Oh, did I have everything? Yeah, let's just continue here. So he attempts to test some of these aspects. And this one is going to be a couple minutes, but it should be clear to you what's happening. He's just a performer. He doesn't build circuits. But I think I think he shows us a very simple test to try and figure out at least some of this what the manufacturers are talking about.
I barely know what these things are, but if they hold the secrets to why guitar amps sound like they do, then I want to learn more about them. The first one I tested was bias type. The bias has something to do with how the power tubes are set up. Companies market their amps as fixed bias or cathode bias, and people on the internet describe the sound of fixed bias as stiff and crisp, and cathode bias as sweet and juicy. Now, I'm just a performer, I don't know anything about circuits, but my guitar amp happens to have a switch on the back that lets me pick the bias type while keeping everything else about the amp the same. So I played some stuff into a looper, played it back through the amp on fixed bias mode, then on cathode bias mode. How different do you think they sound? So I moved on to rectifier
Sounded
type.
the same to me.
As far as I can tell, the rectifier preps the electricity.
For those that have been in the forums, these are not unfamiliar terms. Rectifier, bias type, tubes. For the rest of you, just know that these are what they tell you is supposed to make the amp sound totally different.
That the rest of the amp uses. Companies market their amps as having a tube rectifier or solid-state rectifier, and people on the internet describe the sound of tube rectifiers as saggier, flabbier, and more compressed, and solid-state rectifiers as tighter and punchier. I'm just a performer, I don't know anything about circuits, but one of my friends has a Mesa Lone Star head, and it happens to have a switch on the back that lets me pick the rectifier type while keeping everything else about the amp the same. So I played some stuff into a looper, played it back through the amp on tube rectifier mode, then on solid-state rectifier mode. How different do you think they sound?
Exactly the same.
Again, left feeling unfulfilled, I moved on to a surefire difference maker, power tube type. This one's big because when asked what kind...
This one's going to matter, right? Some of you in the chat already said that this matters. Some of you already in the chat said the power tubes is what matters. Let's watch.
What kind of amp is that? I've found that people will usually answer with the type of power tubes it has. Companies market their amps as having 6v6 power tubes or EL84 power tubes, and people on the internet describe the sound of EL84s as mid-rangey and bright, and 6v6s as classy and dark. I'm just a performer, I don't know anything about circuits, but I got my hands on this Egnator Rebel 30 for a day, and this amp happens to have a knob on the front that lets me pick the power tube type while keeping everything else about the amp the same. So I played some stuff into a looper, played it back through the amp on EL84 mode, then on 6v6 mode. How different do you think they sound?
Exactly the same.
At this point, I moved on to the preamp tube type.
Okay, the preamp. Take this one in. This is where it starts getting mind-blowing.
Companies market their amps as having an EF86 preamp tube or having a 12AX7 preamp tube, and people on the internet describe the sound of 12AX7s as harsh and fizzy, and EF86s as robust and dynamic. I'm just a performer, I don't know anything about circuits, but I tracked down a Morgan Dual 20 head because it happens to have a switch on the back that lets me pick the preamp tube type while keeping everything else about the amp the same. How different do you think they sound?
They sounded different. They actually sounded different this time. And this is where it gets mind-blowing, okay? So what happens here? He finds out that the difference in preamps does make a difference. The other preamp sounded just softer and less distorted. But then he thought to himself, well, hold on. All the other circuitry parts don't really affect the signal in the way the preamp does. The preamp determines how much amplification it gets before it gets to the speaker stage. And when looking at these two preamps he just tried, they both amplify the signal at a different rate. So he thought to himself, he later on in this video, he does the following. He thinks to himself, well, what if I just compensated the volume on the lower wattage preamp? Would it just end up sounding like the higher rated preamp? And in fact, it does. He just turns up the volume of the softer preamp, and it ends up sounding exactly the same. And so what does this imply? It implied that tone and what shapes tone had nothing to do with the construction, the cabinet, the speaker. It had nothing to do with any of that. The construction, the materials, and it simply had the only thing that really affected tone was distortion and EQ. And that should be mind-blowing for those kind of maybe into this bit, but I think I can explain this for the rest of you. I think I should be able to explain this for the rest of you. Because if only EQ and distortion, okay, consider what distortion is, that crunchy sound you give an amplifier and a guitar, okay? And EQ is the low, mid, and high knobs on an amplifier. Are you somewhat familiar? I think many of you are somewhat familiar with the basics of an EQ. You may have seen it on a stereo system, maybe even in your car, that you can affect the mid, the low, the high, the treble. Sometimes it's called treble and bass. See, the thinking is that for decades, these amplifiers, the construction, the materials, how it's made and all that, the implication is that it's all this that shapes tone. I urge you to go watch it yourself, this video. He goes on to build what he calls the tackle box. And it's essentially his own homemade amplifier.
I barely know what these things are, but if they hold the secrets to why guitar amps sound like they do, then I want to learn more about...
Stop it! This thing's just playing things I don't want it to play. He goes on to build his own amp modeler. Okay, his own little amp modeler. Like I was describing earlier, these devices that are thousands of dollars that model all these different sounds of amps. He basically shoves an EQ pedal, 2 EQ pedals, and 2 distortion pedals into like an old fishing tackle box. And this setup alone, in just messing around with the EQ knobs and the distortion, he's able to recreate the tone of every single amp you've ever wanted. Every single amp. All of them. So that was that video. Changed my thinking. And then I thought of something further here. I hope you're finding this somewhat interesting, because it's such a scam. It's so interesting what we allow and the lies that we want to hear. We really want, the world loves lies. They love lies. So I basically showed you that the whole amplifier industry is a scam. And yeah, maybe at one time analog sounds mattered a lot, but what the Axe FX is, what the Kemper Profiler is, what your laptop is, that's all it is digital processing of sound. That's all it is. And your laptop from 20 years ago could do what the Axe FX could do. It has way more computing power, and that's all this is, digital sound processing. With the correct IR profile, like I explained to you earlier, and with the correct EQ and the right amount of distortion, you can have any tone you want. Let me take this further. Consider what the FM3 is, a digital sound processor. Let me show you a little device known as the OP1. Anybody familiar with Teenage Engineering? They're like a boutique music gear hardware. Oh, and I see calls, by the way. I will get to you right after this. They're like this Swedish company, and their whole thing is making these like boutique, beautiful musical devices. This is the OP1, if you're familiar with it. This is a $2,000 machine, okay? It's beautiful. The knobs, the buttons. And if, for anyone that knows about the OP1, I'm sure you saw this video years ago. This video made the OP1 super viral. Everybody wanted one after this. People saw it. What does this even have? This probably has 1.5 million views 8 years ago. Everybody wanted one of these when they saw this video. Like, wow, what a powerful, beautifully designed piece of gear. I saw it. I wanted one. I was like, $2,000, maybe one day. And I'm watching that video on the tones and amplifiers, and how when you break it down, when you break down the components of these things that you're buying, it's way simpler, and many things that you already own are already way better than these. They're nicely designed and beautiful, sure. When you break it down, and you saw all that with the amps, it's the same thing with these groove boxes. And there's a whole industry. In fact, the whole industry is selling you the Akai MPC, another drum machine, another sequencer. But what is this little keyboard exactly? The OP1 features a membrane keyboard. So those snazzy keys you saw, underneath is a membrane, just like this laptop. It'll feel like the membrane of this laptop, kind of cheap. It has a 400 megahertz Blackfin processor, 64 megabytes of RAM, and a tiny little screen. To visualize these specs, these are the specs of a laptop from 1999. The Dell Latitude came out in 1999 and has better specs than that. What's in the OP1? They say 35 different sounds. What's actually in there are just 3 synth engines. For those that know about synths, basically, a synth engine is a digital computing of math to create sound, okay? And there's an analog, an FM, and a physical modeling synth in the OP1. And you tweak with it, and you make all the sounds that it makes. Yeah, there's free software that does that and better. It's all it is digital processing. There's nothing special about it. It has a sampler on it. GarageBand has a sampler, and that's free with your Apple products. And it has equalizer, modulation, and filters. You might think this, I just found this so fascinating for me personally. It's really all a scam. It's all a big scam. And you're thinking this fancy gear is going to make you like a good musician. The dream is that tactile parameters will free your eyes up and you'll be able to make all this music. But if you look at these devices, you still have to go through endless menus. It's not going to make... You just end up relearning how to ride the bike, how to use a sequencer, how to use an arpeggiator on a new device when your laptop from decades ago could do it. That's not going to make you better at music. It's not going to make you better ever. It's just like another thrill. Isn't that human nature? That's totally like human nature. Everybody has this show personality, and they love lies. They can't wait to buy the OP1 and pretend like they can really make music or anything good. And it's all for what? So that you can avoid feeling empty. That's what buying gear and all that stops you from feeling empty. And the lack of feeling empty pushes you to buy more gear that you don't need in an industry that's a scam. They're selling these groove boxes are basically computers from decades ago. And it's interesting to just kind of see that all. And I wanted to present it for you. A little pet topic here that I needed to show you, because if you're not mind blown, if you're not selling your gear, if you're not listening to this, or maybe you don't make any music, maybe you don't make music at all, this should at least be somewhat interesting to you, because this scam is like in every aspect of life, and what they're trying to sell you and all that. Okay, it's all just screens and RAM and CPU. The best thing to start making music with, if you're listening, is the device you're watching this show on right now. You can get Koala Sampler, iOS. You can get amazing synth engines on iOS. And all your music is digital anyways. Oh, we need analog sound, something that's recorded from a microphone that will what? Eventually get processed by a digital processor and then come through speakers, like you are right now watching this show. I need analog. Anyways, a little bit for the music heads and also for the people who are not that into music. I think you somewhat understood the scam going on and the spiritual aspect of it all. It's just so fascinating. And it's all marketing. It's all just like nice marketing. These Swedes, man. Now I know IKEA's evil because it's like pure form over function. And these look like, when you look at these things, you're like, yeah, take my money. Like the electron,
This here is the electron
like the Syntact.
and one of the biggest attractions of it is that it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 digital tracks.
This is like $1,500 item.
Analog tracks.
And your phone from 5 years ago could do everything it does and more.
4 MIDI tracks.
And it's a beautiful looking thing.
Let's bring the elements of
the snazzy buttons.
track in one by one, starting with kick.
But anyways, I hope you find that somewhat interesting. I hope you find that somewhat fascinating. Let's get to some calls here and all that, okay? Let me see here. Let's move this.
About them. The first one I tested was bias type. The bias has something to do.
Please, sir. Enough out of you. Thank you very much. So what else here? That was just something that was on my mind. The scam. Who's mind blown? Where are the at least guitar people in the chat? Tell me you're not mind blown. That you need to go watch that video because he proves it. He shows you how every amp can sound like any amp. Any amp can sound like any amp. So it's time to overcome. For any gear sluts in the chat who they have this addiction and they're ready to buy the next piece of gear. Hopefully this woke you up. Anyways, let's get to Johnny Armour, man. How you been, sir? Appreciate your call. You're on the air.
Hey, what's going on, Nick? How you been, man?
All is well, sir. Nice to hear from you. How you been?
Pretty good.
Right on.
Was that was nice that you really went in depth on the whole amp sound audio thing.
And you got to thank this. I forget his name. Jim Lill, and his video on that. But for sure, you could take it further. The whole industry is a scam.
Oh, you also wrapped it up nicely with your profound, sage insight at the end about how it's just a way for people to, cover up their insecurities, essentially. Right?
Yeah, buddy, you got to throw the God in there.
All right, well, you go for it. I think the farthest I ever got with audio was downloading Potato.
What's Potato?
You don't know Potato?
No.
You know Banana?
Are you messing with me? Is that a VST?
No.
Is that an audio plugin?
I don't know. You replace your stereo mix with a Potato, and it's a software program. I think it's open source.
Oh. Voice Meter maybe. I remember.
Yeah,
Voice Meter. Yeah, I remember Voice Meter. They have Potato and Banana.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm familiar with Voice Meter.
That confused the heck out of me. That's as far as I ever got.
Yeah,
with,
I mean, what you're doing with that is it's actually not a place where beginners usually go. You're internally routing audio, and it's just like that just gets funky because you don't even see the cables. You're like, what do you mean internally routing audio? What does that even mean? That's an interesting one to start with.
If you have any recommendations, I'll take it.
Yeah,
but
just like a little piano or a little cheap guitar. No fancy equipment, no MIDI controllers, nothing. Just a nice weighted key bed or a nice little guitar to get your chops on and just play.
Oh no, you got me mistaken. I'm not a musician at all.
Oh.
That's the confusion.
Yeah.
Well, I had an idea. I just wanted to run it by you, see what you think of it.
Hit me.
Demilitarize the White House and the Senate and the House of Congress.
What does that mean?
It means take away all the defenses and all the, the guards and the bunkers and that little safe room that they have underneath and all that kind of stuff. get rid of it.
Oh, like even
So,
like they have like like Capitol Police and stuff like that.
Yeah. They'll
I didn't
get
know
the
they had
police.
they have all that. They have like bunkers and all this stuff. I mean, I'm sure I assumed like for the president and all that, but yeah, that's right. Even like J6, didn't they go off into some area?
Yeah, they've got like little secret hidey places where they go to. I don't know, but I mean, it's secured. It's obviously like a fortress, right? So take all that stuff away.
Now, why do you say that?
Because I think it would result in a more stable nation and a government that is much more cautious in how it navigates. It's going to make them more vulnerable, and I think that would translate in a government that responds to its citizenry rather than what we have now, where it seems like the citizenry doesn't really have much of a say. So the government kind of has, carte blanche to do what it wants.
And no repercussions, you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, they've
you're
essentially
implying the repercussions coming from where, though?
Well, you would have, that threat, of course, but you have that threat now, don't you? I mean, people already take shots at these people from time to time. So nothing really changes in that regard. And if anything were to happen, those people I would expect would be severely, punished for anything that they, just as they would be right now.
I mean, you're making me think about a number of things. The fact that violence is not, even laws don't stop a threat of violence. They may protect and all that, but right, that's always there in a sense. That's always there for anyone motivated enough and evil enough. And I mean, I guess I know you're kind of getting a little bit more specific implication here. The threat of violence will essentially order them and have them work for the people. I can entertain some of this conversation in terms of how these people are insulated for so many of their decisions of what they do. I mean, Martha's Vineyard, these people, these voters, these wealthy people. You think they live around immigrants? They live around criminals. They're insulated from all these things. So there's something to be entertained there. But you seem to have gone all the way to this, violent implication, and I'm wondering, are you just playing around or?
No, you got me wrong. I didn't say that. The threat of violence already exists. Of course, the threat of violence would exist if we remove all of the, the defenses and everything, all this, whatever they have, and made it so that they, it's the White House. That's where the president lives, and obviously you're going to have the people that are necessary to run the show kind of behind the scenes. But essentially it's just a building like any other building, and they get the same security as the citizenry. These people they're representatives. That means the people support them. They got voted into office, presumably, so they have followers and supporters. I think that...
and so that you're saying they should be safe. They're already pretty safe because of that.
I think they would be much less reckless in their decision making and their governing, because it would. I think that the more defense and private security teams and this and that we have deployed for each of these people every time they want to travel anywhere, it gives them. I mean, what does that do to the psyche? Right?
So I know what you're putting down. It's just when the rubber meets the road, I highly doubt that having a bunker is what's insulating their decisions. I think their lives are already like that. You see what I'm saying? I'm just saying that I agree with them being insulated from their bad decisions allows them to keep doing it. But when you get to that specifics of their bunker, it's their bunker that's allowing them to govern badly. Is a little bit too. It's just too obtuse in my point.
I'm talking about all of the services that we provide, like the armed security detail that follows them wherever they go, and all of this stuff. I'm saying give them some semblance of normalcy, what it is to be an actual citizen. Those should be the people that run the country in the first place. And I think that they'd be less inclined to make, as I said, reckless decisions that would upset large portions of the populace, because they wouldn't feel like they're, invincible. I don't think that the feeling of invincibility is a good thing for a leader of a nation. That seems like a problem to me. And I'm not calling for violence.
No, okay.
I'm just saying,
and that's fair.
I'm just saying that I think this would create a government that would be more receptive to the.
I got you. And you know what? Sincerely approaching that and knowing that you're not even saying violence, and not without having to say, "Oh, well, don't imply violence here, bro." Let's. I think approaching that sincerely, just in my attempt to do that, I'm not an expert, but I think even approaching just that sincerely, even then, in my mind, it just falls apart. In that, put it like this: how invincible do they really feel from these bunkers? I mean, it comes down to like it comes down to like. What really incentivizes, well, put it like this: I'm not even sure, man. You might be somewhat right in that, in something what you're saying. I'm just not sure.
Well, I mean, even have you ever had a bodyguard?
No, but I'm just wondering, like, how invincible do they really feel? And you might be right, but.
Yeah, well, if you've ever had a bodyguard, it does give you a sense of, oh, I have this added protection. You know what I mean? So imagine what the heck it feels like to have like a bunch of Navy SEAL type of dudes, all armed to the teeth, following you in vehicles and everything everywhere you go. And why should that be necessary? It wouldn't be necessary if the government didn't feel like,
well, don't they get threats though?
I mean, the populace.
I mean, don't they get threats though? Doesn't that does happen? I mean, they are elevated in terms of being targeted. I mean, put it like this: in my mind, all it is. Here's what it is, Don Elmer. It's just all it is to me is just what you're saying seems to be maybe like what.
But
4%. What really motivates, what really incentivizes and motivates these people, in my mind, is, for example, their continued votes. I think what's more for example, what more affects the psyche of a Senate Republican? I'll tell you, more than being protected by Capitol Police. I think it's them being able to go on TV, say, vote for me, and I'll stop the illegals, and then they don't, and they still get votes. I think that's more affects their psyche and in a corrupt, crazy way than what you're saying, and what I'm saying, which I'm not even denying what you're saying. It's just I think what you're saying is like maybe 4%. I think a huge chunk is the incentive. Imagine the warping that must happen in a politician's brain when you just keep getting voted in and you keep lying to people. Like, you got to imagine the twisted soul of a person like that.
Well, I mean, I'm not really into the whole democracy voting. I just don't really buy into it. To me, it seems apparent that the government does what it wants it works in its interest. And I think, just one step, it's not like, going to, it would change things, but it's not going to fix everything. What you said about the lust for the vote and, they have to lie to some extent. So in one sense, you can't blame a politician for lying because people vote for liars. That's what they vote for. So
that's fair enough.
But then at the same time, I think that, there's a lot of rigging that's involved. At the end of the day, the government works in its own interest, not in the interest of the people.
Yeah.
And I think that's the primary reason why you need all of these defenses and all of these security detail and all armored cars and everything to drive them to and fro. You need that because they don't work in the interest of the people. If you got rid of that, I think they'd be much more inclined to work in the interest of the people, is basically my argument.
I mean, I'm picking up more and more what you put down, just hearing you out here. I mean, wasn't that the Second Amendment? They say the Second Amendment, in a sense, no, was deeper than just defending yourself and hunting, right? It's in case the government becomes tyrannical, they say.
Yeah.
So this notion is not unfound.
It even mentions, I believe, something about forming small militias. So yeah, it's been bastardized like everything else. The Constitution only matters to the people that hold it sacred, and that's white people. Nobody else does. Only white people, because it was made by us and for us. So we hold it sacred. But, like I said, the government is not in the interest of the Americans. And when I say Americans, again, I mean white people. And, that's why we keep saying, why is the government allowing it? Why are the politicians lying to us? Because they hate you and they want everything that you have. So they're taking it. So at least let me go over to the guy's house without his military details so I could say, you're a jerk for allowing 60 million illegals over here. It would be more personal and they'd be less protected. They need the protection because they're screwing us over.
I disavow. But hey, loud and clear, sir. Donnie, man, nice to hear from you, dude. What was I going to say?
Will you sign my petition?
I cannot do that, sir.
You're not going to answer my convincing argument?
No.
What if I throw Jesus in there somehow?
Nope.
No? Oh,
I think you'd be... Some might call that blaspheming. Not me, but... Donnie, man, call me again, sir. Nice to hear from you.
Yeah. Later.
Good to see you. All right, sir. Aaron, Maryland, how you doing, sir? On the air. We got Aaron, Maryland. Going once on the air. Aaron, MD. We'll see if he's there. Hey, Derek, let me know. Aaron? Okay, Derek, let me know if Aaron's there. But what can I say, folks? We're coming to the end of the show. I hope you enjoyed it. Let's see here. Yeah, thanks for the coffee, super chats, everybody. Everybody's very generous, man. Thank you so much. But that's it, folks. That's pretty much the show. I'll be back tomorrow for more American Anchor, baby. You don't want to miss it. We got Manhood Hour, of course, the Hake Report. But what are y'all saying here in the last few minutes of the show? What are y'all saying? Aaron, I'm not sure about this. Seems like certain amps paired with certain microphones have provided tones that I couldn't reproduce digitally. I don't know, Aaron. Like what? All right, folks, that's it for me. Hope you enjoyed the show. I'm out for now. Take care. I'll be back tomorrow. Hold on.
With how the power tubes are set
up. Come on. That's it for me, folks. Take care. See you tomorrow. Peace.
The views, information, thoughts, and opinions expressed during this show are the individual's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of the JLP Network or Bond. Their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only. The JLP Network and Bond name and all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owner, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service.